You are listening to Wilhelm, a film-centric podcast for film lovers of all kinds. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Wilhelm. I am your host, Ben Beck, and I hope everybody out there had a great Thanksgiving. I took the week off last week for the holiday, but we're back to it. And while there is another major holiday season approaching, in which I do have some fun themed episodes planned and coming, there is a movie on the horizon that's soon to be released, that being The Matrix Resurrections. So what better time than now to take a dive into the films that kicked off the franchise. I need a guest, though, as always, to help me and give me a hand in freeing your minds, so be it, or as it be, whatever the expression is. So please welcome my co-host for this episode. I'm so excited. I've never podcasted with him. I'm so excited. My friend Eric Stipes.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm excited to have you on. I was excited that you reached out because I was looking for people to do this episode. I wanted to get it in before the new one comes out, and because I figured it was very timely. And when you reached out, I was like, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when I saw you post looking for someone for the Matrix franchise, I got really excited because with everything going on, as you mentioned, busy holiday season, I kind of forgot that Matrix 4 was coming out in like a month. Yeah. And so this was such a great excuse to take a deep dive back into the trilogy.
Yeah. And that's what I figured, like not only for you and me to kind of go back and rewatch the trilogy, but to release this episode, to talk about this episode and dive into these movies and release it not the week before the movie comes out, but a couple weeks before Resurrections comes out.
Give some people some time.
It gives the listeners some time, exactly, to kind of dive back into those three movies, get caught up and revisit before the new movie comes out. Because I'm excited. I'm excited for the new one.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. I mean, that's a good word for it, because I really don't know what they're going to do with this movie. And we'll talk a little bit about that by the end of the episode. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I know you've done a couple podcasting bits here and there with our friend Jason. And I know you were on Watched It in the 80s with Damien, in which I was actually just on Watch It in the 80s with Damien. We talked about Ghostbusters Afterlife, which that episode just released. So by the time you're hearing this, you can go and search that out. That was 2 hours of a lot of fun. Almost 2 hours of a lot of fun.
I've only heard good things.
That's good.
As soon as I watch the movie, I'm going to go back and check that podcast with you and Damien.
Yeah, the movie is so good. I loved it. I saw it twice within 3 days.
That's high praise.
Yeah, as Nicolas Cage says. Oddly enough, Nicolas Cage connected to the Matrix movies. We'll find out about how when we go into some production notes.
I did not know this. I'm excited here.
One of the original people approached to play Neo before Keanu Reeves.
Dang, that's crazy. Because when I was watching this, I was thinking like Ben's eventually going to do a Nick Cage episode.
Oh, absolutely,
and I'm excited for that.
Absolutely, I'm going to do a Nick. How could you do a movie podcast and not do a Nicolas Cage episode? The tough part is narrowing it down.
There's just so much. I know I don't even know why I was thinking about it, but when I was watching these, the thought had come of like, yeah, Nick Cage podcast with like a top 5. What would I even do if I was theoretically going to do one? There's just so much to choose from. And like so many great ones.
And he puts out like a movie every 2 months at this point. So I mean, you're never at a lack of movies, of Nicolas Cage movies to watch. And a buddy of mine, it's another plug for another friend of mine too, but a friend of mine actually has a podcast called That's High Praise. And it literally is every episode he just talks about and reviews another Nicolas Cage movie.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and it's easy to do because, like I said, he's putting out like 4 or 5 movies a year at this point. So it's, he never runs out of content. But yeah, so the Matrix trilogy, we're going to talk mainly about the trilogy. We might bring up some moments about the Animatrix and the video game, which for the life of me, I can't remember the subtitle of the video game.
There's 2. There's Enter the Matrix, which came out alongside Reloaded. And then there is The Matrix Online, which came out the following year in 2004.
Oh, I didn't even know there was an online game. I remember Enter the Matrix because I played it and I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.
I don't remember a Matrix Online. I wonder if it still exists, if there's still servers online.
I would be surprised, but from what I understand, it basically picks up right after the end of Revolutions. So I did not manage to do a dive into that, though.
Okay, interesting.
Researching the show.
I'm I mean, like I said, we'll probably bring up some little tidbits here and there about Enter the Matrix and also the Animatrix. One part of the Animatrix in particular, because it does heavily involve Reloaded and Revolutions. It does actually cross over into Reloaded and Revolutions. So I'm sure that'll come up in the topic of conversation. But for the most part, we're just gonna focus on talking about the original trilogy of Matrix movies, that being The Matrix from 1999, Matrix Reloaded from 2003, released in May of 2003, and then The Matrix Resurrections, which was Matrix Revolutions, which was November of 2003. So both of them came out within, I think, 6 months of each other. So I'm pretty sure they were filmed at the same time, and that's how they were able to do it.
Yes.
So yeah, this episode's going to be a little bit different format than usual. Rather than top 5 format that we usually follow, this one's going to be just a little bit more free form, but you can expect us to hopefully touch on some of the things from the franchise, like some of our favorite moments, favorite scenes, favorite characters, some cool production notes. And we'll probably talk about some of the things about the trilogy that we didn't like, things that needed work, weak moments, and such. And we may jump around a little bit, so apologize. But the one thing that's most important, as always, there will be spoilers. So you have been warned ahead of time. But let's dive in. Let's dive into the conversation and just start off right with The Matrix. 1999, I was just into, I think it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. So definitely showing my age. What were your initial impressions from what you can remember of the first time that you saw The Matrix?
So I actually have a pretty good memory of this. I'll give away my age too. So I first saw this on VHS. So my mother's mother and her brother are big movie fans, and my parents were kind of strict about what I could watch, but both of them, my uncle, my grandmother, would always push to let me see, stuff beyond my age limit, probably things I should not have been seeing. And I remember my grandmother brought VHS of Matrix. My grandmother and my uncle brought it as soon as it had come out. And I remember hearing a conversation between them and my dad about letting me see it, or saying like, oh, he's going to love this movie. Like, trust me. And so I do specifically remember the very first time that I saw it, where I was, living room of my house, like Saturday afternoon, and just being completely, just blown away. Mm-hmm. It was like nothing I had ever seen. And, I think it set the standard for like a whole generation. And yeah, it's a total masterpiece.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it sent, like you said, it set a new standard, not in multiple ways. I mean, because not only did it set a new standard in storytelling, but it set a new standard in technology used.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, bullet time was invented purely for The Matrix.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've ever seen it used the same way since, to be honest.
No, I don't think so. Mostly, I think in maybe like video games and stuff.
Yeah, and maybe like in motion capture and stuff like that. But as far as movie making, I don't think. Yeah, just thinking about it, I don't think we've seen bullet time used since, because it was so revolutionary.
Yeah, not in movies. I think the best other use of it outside of The Matrix was the video game series Max Payne. If anybody had the great fortune to play that, that was amazing. But yeah, really the only other thing I think I've seen like bullet time in.
Yeah. So you were similar to me then the first time you saw it, in that you were kind of late to the game, as in you didn't see it in theaters.
Did not see it in theaters.
Yeah, I was the same way. I remember seeing the trailers for it. I remember sitting at a friend's house over the summer and seeing the trailers for it. And, all my friends wanted to see the movie. And for some reason, I don't know what it was. I kind of felt like just by watching the trailers, the movie felt a little convoluted to me. Like I saw the trailers and thought, I'm never going to get it. Like it's too complicated. It looks, the trailers even look confusing. And I didn't, for that reason, I kind of avoided going to the theaters to see it. So I was late to the game and I didn't see it until it released on DVD. And then I remember sitting over at that same friend's house a couple months later, watching it, and they had all seen it before and they wanted me to watch it. And I just remember, like you, just being completely in awe of this movie and being really regretful that I didn't go to theaters to see it.
Yeah, I would not have been able to get into the theaters for that one. I did see the following two in theaters.
I did as well. Yeah. So I didn't go to theaters to see it just because I felt like it was out of my intelligence range. You didn't go just because you weren't old enough to go to the theater yet to see it. Yeah, I mean, and I have to say, like, we're going to talk about some of our favorite moments and stuff from throughout this franchise. But, one of my favorite moments from this franchise literally is the opening of the movie. I mean, the opening of the movie really sets the standard for what we're going to expect throughout the rest of this franchise. And it's really what I think grabbed me from the very first time I saw it. We see, Trinity's hover with the kick. And then we see, jumping huge distances over buildings and, and gunfights and everything just in that opening sequence. And I actually learned, here's one of the first interesting production notes, is that when the then Wachowski brothers, pitched the movie to Warner Brothers. They pitched the movie. They wanted to do it for 30 mil, and Warner Brothers only wanted to give them 10. So they filmed that first scene. God. Yeah, they filmed that first scene, and then took it to Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers said, "If this is what the movie's going to be like, you can have the budget you want." And they gave them the budget. They gave them the full 30, which blows my mind that movie was made for $30 million.
Yeah, I thought that it was really made for like 40, 50 million or something like that. Yeah. I think the sequels were made for like double that, like 60 some million.
And
that's crazy. I didn't know that about the that intro scene.
And I'm looking at it now. Yeah, the budget was 63, so they must have pitched it for 30. Warner Brothers gave them 10, and then after seeing that scene, they gave them whatever they wanted, and that was the 63.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, the sequel was double, but it was double 63. It was like 150 or something like that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the notes now. The budget for Reloaded was $150 million, and the budget for it was 100. It was also 150 for Revolutions.
Yeah, I wonder if that was 150 for like both of them put together. Or, I don't know, just because they filmed them both as one thing.
Oh yeah, you know what? That could possibly be. It could be 150 for both, because it does seem a little outrageous to go from 63 to 150. It would make a little more sense if that was total combination for both.
Although, right. I kind of felt if anybody is a fan of these movies out there and does not happen to own these, I would highly recommend. They just released them all in 4K, and you can buy them all digitally. And there's like a majillion special features. I mean, there's like hours and hours and hours of special features showing how they made all this stuff. And I just, like when as we were both saying, the first time you see this and you're just like in total awe. And I think like you could be like so overawed that you might not even have the time to think about how they did it. And, going back and looking at those and seeing how they did a lot of that stuff. Like you were saying, it's like is a technical masterpiece, as you were saying, like set all kinds of new standards, and, they made new technology and stuff just to bring the vision of the Wachowskis to life. And it's really worth going and taking a look and seeing exactly how they did that and all the, people behind the scenes who made this possible.
Yeah, I actually own the digitals of the 4K digitals of all three movies, and they are, you think they look stunning at the time. In 99 at that time, I think 720 was maybe the max, maybe 1080. You probably could have gotten in 99. I'm not exactly sure.
In 99, it was everything was like 4:3 for the most part, I think.
I think they still did widescreen, but I think it was still probably like a standard def. Like, I don't think it was.
Oh, yeah. In the
definition.
Theaters, for sure, it was widescreen. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you figure you're going from what they were then in a standard definition format to standard widescreen format to 4K. The movies looked amazing then.
Yeah.
And now they look phenomenal in 4K. So, yeah, I'm with you. I haven't checked out those special features, though. I'm going to have to do that.
Well, like you were saying with, just that opening scene of the first Matrix, where it opens and there's that, the line of code, and you have Cypher and Trinity talking, right? And she's like, oh shit, like something's about to go down. And, cue to the cops coming in, and that wonderful pan shot where it comes from like looking at Trinity over her shoulder to like the cops behind her, and then she like jumps up in the air, like spins around, and the camera spins with her while she's like holding that crane pose, and then kicks the dude like in the face. Them doing that with like the multiple cameras of like interspersed like still cameras and like live, rolling film cameras, so that they could just instantaneously, like switch that point of view and then keep the action rolling. It's just amazing the way that they filmed these. So the Wachowskis were saying like they were heavily influenced by like Hong Kong kung fu movies, where a lot of the fight scenes are shot, from a stood back point of view with like wider angles and like with really long shots. So I think that's one thing that's just amazing about those fight scenes, where how you can go from one point of view and then they'll do like a lot of spinning around, like with the bullet time, the first time you see it with Neo on the roof when he's like dodging those bullets, right? Before they get into the helicopter, and they basically have like pan 360 cameras of just like, there's, Keanu Reeves, forgot his name there for a second, is in the middle of like all these cameras, and it's just interspersed with stills and live rolling cameras. And, like they can go spin all the way around and then come back, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I remember watching. I do remember seeing a lot of behind the scenes features before the new features came out of bullet time, and how that was done, and how it's literally like a 360-degree rig with all the cameras around, and how that was shot. And I remember how amazing that was to me. But even going back to, the Trinity kick from the opening of the movie, like that's one of the things that really sold me on this, because I had never seen an effect like that before. You look at there's that effect, there's the effect of bullet time that we mentioned, and then there's the other effect, which I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's during the rescue of Morpheus, when he's like kind of running towards the window, and there's the extreme close up, and then it kind of like slows down as they're doing it. Like, I don't know what that effect is called, but even that, like, there are so many different styles of filmmaking throughout this that had never been seen before. And that's really what makes this movie so innovative. And like you said at the top of the podcast, kind of changed things going forward. And it's so innovative that like I don't even think, as we mentioned, bullet time hasn't been used in movies since The Matrix. And I think it's basically because nobody wants to try it. It's so intimidating of a process. No one wants to try and imitate it.
Yeah, I in digging into these special features, never had, I guess, quite the appreciation for pre-visualization that I guess I should have, where basically they pre-render everything, in a computer, where they have like the whole action sequence set up, as if it was like a video game, where they have the main characters, on a screen, like they're little video game characters, and then have them doing like the exact fights. And then to anybody who's ever played a video game where you can move sort of the camera around, it's basically the same thing like that. So they can tell, like, okay, if we put the camera here, what is going to be in the shot? Like if we put it at this height, at this angle, and then we want to move it around here, like what can we capture? How far away does the camera need to be? What kind of, they can simulate like different, like lens angles and stuff like that. Do you want wide angle or whatever? And they can see how that's going to look. So they can basically pre-plan out where they're going to have all their cameras when they shoot these action sequences. And they said that, they used that a ton in The Matrix, but that it was completely invaluable for like the freeway chase scene on Matrix Reloaded. So they could basically have everything planned out. Like you can, everybody I'm sure is familiar with the concept of like storyboards, where you have basically index cards and you draw like what the scene is going to be on there. But with like visualization, you can do all of that, but like in 3D in time. And yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's so technologically advanced, as you said, with pre-rendering and such, and the technology that they developed for this movie. It was nice to see it come back and reutilized again in the second and third movies, and I kind of hope they do the same thing with the fourth one as well, because as I've said a number of times already, it hasn't been seen since the Matrix movies. To me, it's okay if the Matrix takes it back up again and brings it back. Like I wouldn't mind seeing maybe another bullet time scene, at least like a variation of bullet time. I don't want to see a complete repeat of the same scene again, but I wouldn't mind seeing it used and utilized in a new way for this fourth movie as kind of like an homage to the way they brought it back. They originally designed it.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as bullet time, whether they do or don't, I guess I'm okay with either, but as far as like the fight styles that they did, both like the actual martial arts of it all, and then the style that they filmed, I think is probably like maybe my favorite, like action fighting sequence style that really exists. Cause I don't know if it was like late aughts or like early teens when like action sequences started doing like the like rapid cuts. And I like really can't stand that. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, where it'll be like, there's like one guy will throw a punch and then it'll cut. And then there's a cut to like another view and then a cut to another view of just like every time like an action happens, I feel like there is like a cut scene, and it's like, there'll be like a jittery camera or something that's moving around. And I just have no idea what's going on in like some of these fight scenes. And I won't throw out an example because I don't really want to talk trash about any movies, because I know a lot of work goes into anything, no matter how great or terrible it happens to be. But like they were saying, this like Hong Kong kung fu style with really long shots and this wide angle of capture for your field of view is just my favorite, because it just makes you feel like I'm standing on the sidelines, sort of like making this happen or watching this happen. And then, like you were saying, when Morpheus is jumping out of the interrogation room, where they're using that technique of having multiple cameras lined up on a shot, and then that way they can just rotate the point of view without cutting the action. So it's one continuous shot, even though the camera isn't the same camera being used. They can just splice it all together. It's amazing. And
there's no like cameraman following. It's literally like a rig that was built that follows him, so that it's a smooth transition. It's a smooth follow. And it's like you said, it's able to I like the point of view that you said of being on the sideline and watching it happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like watching a side scroller, but live.
Yes.
You know, yeah, I mean, you're right. Hollywood has relied a little too much sometimes on quick cuts, fast moving, fast paced fight scenes, which there's nothing wrong with fast paced fight scenes, but it's the quick cuts that kind of kill the vibe of it, which is why to mention a different franchise, Netflix's Daredevil, the hallway fight scene in season 1 is so amazing because it's one continuous shot. There's no quick cuts. It's start to finish, one shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it blew so many people away, is because it was something different.
It is very impressive.
So even if we don't get bullet time in the new Matrix movie, I would like to see if maybe Lana was able to pull together some even brand new technology and give us something we've never seen before yet again.
I would not be surprised.
I think it would be amazing. I think it'd be awesome. So I want to pose a question to you, getting off like the production side of things. You know, we've covered a lot of what sets the Matrix apart as a film in Hollywood and in the action genre. I'm mumbling a lot. I apologize. But here's my question. It is a franchise, as in there have been 3 movies. And in my personal opinion, the way the first movie ends, it could have ended right there. They didn't need to make a second or third. So in your opinion, was a trilogy needed, or could it have just stayed at 1 and left it open-ended there?
It could have ended there, and I think that we would still be talking about the Matrix the way that you and I were just talking about the Matrix.
I highly agree. Yeah,
I don't think that it needed follow-ons to have the amazing impact that it did, and I think so allow me to jump for a little bit and just say I think what makes the first one so amazing, and I think why a lot of people look at it as a masterpiece is, I heard somebody say in the special features, like, yeah, it's robots versus kung fu, right? And you can go in at one level, and it's robots versus kung fu, and there are so many other layers to it, though. There's so many other layers. And I think that you don't have to dig too hard to start to see those. And I think with repeated viewings and like the more you think about it, I think you can just keep going down the rabbit hole, as it were. And with the second and third ones, I think that it's a lot harder to maybe see, at least it was for me, like the sort of like the philosophical kind of underpinnings and like what it is that they're doing other than kung fu versus robots in number 2 and number 3.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used that word philosophical, because that's a word that's been in my head too, especially with the first movie. I mean, you're right. Like robots versus kung fu, or robots meets kung fu, is a great description for the first movie. But the more and more viewings of that, you do realize there are some philosophical undertones. There are some religious undertones. There's the element of sci-fi. There's the element of not so much steampunk. Steampunk is more Reloaded and Revolutions than the original Matrix. But when you bring in the Oracle and what she stands for, that's where religion and philosophy comes in. And you're right, the second and third movies kind of lose that a little bit, and the elements of them that we get in the second and third movies almost feel kind of forced, if that makes sense.
It kind of feels like that they're less organically distributed, and that they kind of come up in a few scenes and they're just sort of like concentrated, like in Reloaded, in the scene with the Oracle right before the awesome Burly Brawl.
Yep, one of my favorite scenes.
and then like the architect scene in Reloaded, and then the final bit, the end of I totally blanked on the third movie's name. Revolutions.
Yeah,
at the end.
I do it too.
Architect and Oracle. Too many R's, man. I love alliteration, but it can be a little bit difficult sometimes.
The fourth one's following right along with it too, with Resurrections. So yeah, it's so I mean, in my personal opinion, I do feel that they could have ended the first one, and you're right. Had they not made Reloaded and Revolutions, we would still be talking about the Matrix the same way we are today. It would still be just as revolutionary. It would still be just as innovative, and it would still be on lists of best, like probably greatest movies of all time. That being said, I do appreciate the second and third one for what they gave us. I don't necessarily think they are. I mean, I've heard some people pretty much just like completely trash those movies, and
yeah,
I don't think that's deserved. I think I do appreciate what we got. I don't know how you feel about them.
So, I think when I first saw them, somebody must have gone with me or bought my ticket, or I snuck in, because I was only 15 when those movies came out. So Those were definitely our movies, right? I'm like 90% sure those are.
Matrix, I think.
Don't sneak in the movies.
Matrix Reloaded was rated R, and I'm assuming Reloaded was probably the same. Reloaded was also rated R. Yeah, so the entire trilogy was rated R.
Yeah, so when I saw those, I was also completely blown away by the action and stuff. And Burly Brawl is still like one of the most impressive fight scenes just ever. What I learned in the special features was that there are more coordinated moves in Burly Brawl alone than in the entire first Matrix movie.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me one bit. Because that scene is incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's just it. Like when I say, like, I appreciate some of the things that they gave us, that the trilogy gave us. Yes, I think the story felt kind of forced a little bit and kind of weak. Like they wanted to take what they gave us in the first movie, which, like you said, felt very natural, very fluid. Like it made sense and it just flowed. And 2 and 3 was kind of like, oh, well, we need to go bigger and we need to make this world bigger. And you didn't have to do that, but I get it and I appreciate it. But even that, like I said, I do appreciate some of the things it gave us. Burly Brawl is an amazing piece of action cinematography. And on top of that too, which was in Reloaded, but the freeway chase scene, which you mentioned earlier, I think is like I put that on par with anything the first movie gave us.
Yes. Man, the freeway chase scene I can't believe that they have both Burly Brawl and the freeway chase
in the same movie.
And in between them is that awesome fight scene in like the chateau. In the chateau.
Yeah.
Which is just nuts.
Yeah, against those twins. I forget the name of those twins.
They're just called twins, I think.
Are they just called the twins? Okay.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
But there's a special name for those programs that don't go back to the source, like all those other bodyguards that the Merovingian has. I can't remember what the
I can't remember what they're called either. So, but you're right. I mean, there's so much that this movie gives us, and the fact that like when you talk about like the effort that they put into one of these scenes, one of the coolest pieces of trivia that I know about the movie of Reloaded, at least, is that they built a 1.5 mile long stretch of highway purely for that highway chase scene so that they literally could do whatever they wanted. And it paid off.
Yeah. It's just amazing. The things that they did for these movies is just amazing.
Yeah.
So before we started recording, I was mentioning that I kind of had dove down the rabbit hole and maybe had gone a little bit too far.
Dove too deep.
And so while we're talking about philosophical underpinnings of these movies and how it feels like very organic in the first one and can feel a little bit forced in the second and third, you want to dive down the rabbit hole a little bit with me?
You know what? I'm actually very intrigued by this because I've, outside of this podcast, when you and I first got to meet for the first time in Hershey, we had some very, very intellectual conversations, when we were all hanging out and in person. So I know places your mind can go. So I'm incredibly intrigued by this. So please have at it.
Okay. So I don't have anyone in particular to credit, but a lot of this is not my original thought, but some stuff that I had dug up.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of dialectics, but it's basically like you have first a thesis. So you put forth an idea, and then there is an opposing force against that. That is the antithesis. And finally, those two are reconciled in a synthesis. So a force in one direction, a force in another direction, and then a meeting in the middle. So you can kind of think of this as like a pendulum swinging to one side, then the other, and then it comes down to the middle. But continually that pendulum swings. So it's synthesis, then followed by thesis, then antithesis, then synthesis, over and over again. So one way to look at this trilogy is the original Matrix as just thesis. Okay. So you just have this idea, this statement, these ideas put forth out there, and there's this story. And like you were saying, it could have just ended right there. Like just there's this beautiful thesis, it's put out there,
mm-hmm.
and you could have just ate that for lunch and said, that's awesome, I'm done. But then along comes Reloaded, which is the dialectical antithesis of the first one. So in the first movie, we have, Thomas Anderson, and he's feels that something is wrong. His whole life has the encounter with Morpheus. He's the one. Goes to talk to the Oracle. No, actually, I'm not the one. You're sorry, kid. You're waiting for something else. Maybe the next life, right? Then, he dies. Trinity's like, oh, you can't die because I love you, and the Oracle told me I was going to love the one, right? So then he comes back, he's the one, right? And then the movie ends with him unleashing his like demigod powers and just having control over the Matrix. And there's the phone booth scene at the end where he's like, I didn't come here to tell you how it ends. I'm here to tell you how it begins. The next part is up to you, right? And then he flies off into the sky, and you're like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, it could just end there. And
leave it open-ended. Yeah.
So what do we get from that is that the Matrix is a system of control, but there's this guy, the one who came along and freed the first people from the Matrix. They started Zion, but one day he was going to come back and free the rest of the people and end the war and end the totalitarian enslavement of the human race by the machines. And then what you get in Reloaded is that everything you thought you knew in the original Matrix was total bullshit. And that is that Neo did not, he was not freed. He didn't have his mind freed, right? In the original red pill, blue pill scene in the first Matrix, Morpheus asked Neo, do you believe in fate? And Neo's like, no. And he's like, why? He's like, because I want to believe that I'm in control of my own life, right? And there's some hints of that free will determinism stuff in the first movie, but as we were saying, it feels a lot more organic. It comes up again in the scene where he first meets the Oracle with like the whole vase breaking. What's really going to bake your noodle later is, would you have still broken the vase if I didn't tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it feels a little bit less organic in the second one, but the basic gist of it between the Oracle scene in Reloaded and then the Architect scene is that the one is, there's this awesome speech of the Architect, which I have pulled up, but I'm not going to read. I'll just summarize and just say that, he's like not only like planned for, but basically controlled. He's the sixth one that this has happened over and over again. And he's so like anything that happens repeatedly, you can plan for it. And with planning is some amount of control. And like, there was the perfect original Matrix that was, like a heavenly Matrix, but humans rejected it. And then there was like a much crueler, grosser Matrix, but they rejected that too. And then so they made this one of, the late 20th century, which 99% of people could accept, but some small amount would reject. And it results in this anomalous one. And that's how they maintain control. Is like, okay, 99% of people are going to accept it. Some very, very small fraction are going to reject it, but we can anticipate that and we can plan for it. And when we can plan for it, we can control the outcome. And this is how we do it. We let them, escape. So he says, like when at the end, he's got the choice to leave and go save Trinity or to go out into the Matrix and pick 23 new individuals. Either way, Zion's going to be completely destroyed. There's nothing he can do about that, the Architect says. So he can either leave and go try and save Trinity and die in the process, not save these 23 people and not restart Zion. And if he does that, that'll be the end of the human race. Or he can do what, he's been planned to do, what is the function of the one. And he uses the word function, which is basically like another name for a program, or a part of a program, something that executes like performs a certain duty, basically. And so Neo's duty is to do this and to restart Zion repeatedly so that he's both the beginning and the end, right? So like in the first one, Morpheus says, there was the one, he came and he freed the first of us, and, he died, and it was prophesied that he would return and end the war, right? But the one who ends it is also the exact same one who begins it. So the first one frees the first 23, starts the first Zion, right? Then he dies. And then the second one comes around when there's the first Zion, but he's around when he lets the first Zion die, then saves 23 people and then starts the second Zion, right? So the one is both the beginning and the end, which is like totally crazy, but it's a system of control that the one is explicitly, he's totally complicit in allowing the rest of humanity to remain enslaved in the Matrix by saving these 23 people. He's like, okay, this is really the only way that humanity can endure, because if he doesn't do this, if he goes through the other door and saves Trinity, right, then all of humanity will die. And that's like the stakes is like, okay, you can either have no humans or 99% of humans enslaved, but some of you are free for a little bit, but then we'll kill you, right? So what's it going to be? And so with that, it's like he did not at any time become free. It like at least the previous 5 versions, it happens that our 6th Neo manages to
break the cycle,
some peace or whatever, right? Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop with that.
No, it's really intriguing because the way you described it is very much how the movie is. But it's the way you describe it, with the thesis and the antithesis of, the philosophical tale. It puts a whole new spin on it that I'll be quite honest with you. I just rewatched these movies the other day. I kind of want to go back and rewatch them again because it's going to make me look at it in a little bit of a different light. So, and not necessarily, and not in a bad way at all. Like it kind of makes me want to be a little bit more open-minded as I'm watching them and watch them not necessarily just as movies, but also as a piece of philosophy. Yeah. Because that really is what it equates to.
Yes. And then, so the third one is the synthesis where both, man and machine are put to threat by whatever virus that Smith ends up becoming, which it is a lot harder to make a good case for, at least just given what I know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then there's, you know, a whole bunch of stuff that you could get into with the first one, with when we first, you know, encounter Neo, and he's like in his apartment, and, you know, there's like the code on his computer, and, you know, says like follow the white rabbit, right? And the people come to his door, give him the money, and Neo goes to get some CDs out of a book, and that book is Simulacra and Simulation by philosopher Jean Baudrillard, I believe. And yeah, there's a lot of that in the Matrix 2 about basically different layers of abstraction from reality, and basically how, you know, signs and symbols originally have some representation in reality, and then you get copies of those, and then copies of those, and then eventually the things that you are surrounded by are just copies of copies, or are copies of things that have no original whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And everything is just entirely simulation. And, you know, that's basically what the Matrix is. And this book was basically saying, came out back in the 80s, that like in our current stage of like capitalism, mass consumerism, like mass media, that what we are in now is basically a simulation of reality, that like our daily lives, the daily things that we interact with are so abstracted from, you know, like our original life as human beings. You know, if you imagine like hunter gatherers or whatever that is, that everything we interact with has no real basis in that like animal reality anymore.
Yeah.
And everything that we're concerned with, like, you know, status, power, materialism, all of that is just complete simulation with no basis in real animal reality.
Well, it's interesting too when you look at things from that perspective, because you look at how, I mean, even when the Matrix came out, there were already theories, and I think there still are to this day, that something like that could actually be real, and we really are just living within a simulation. And the way you put it kind of makes it kind of already real, that we are kind of living in a simulation. Everything is just a copy of a copy of a copy, which means nothing is actually real anymore. Everything is a simulation. But at that time, you know, when theories were coming out, like, what if we really are in a simulation, and something like the Matrix actually exists? We're not actually real. We're just constructs of ourselves. You know, everybody was like, well, I would hate that. And then you fast forward to a time like today, where there's movies like Ready Player One, which is literally jacking into a system and becoming a simulation of yourself. And now we're in a time and place where Ready Player One comes out, and everybody's like, oh, I hope that's real one day. It's like, well, you've transitioned so far in like 15, 20 years. Yeah, 15. Yeah, almost. Well, not 20. It hasn't been 20 years since the Matrix came out, but it's been what, 12? My math, 13. My math is no, since 99. It's over 20. Oh my God. My math is way off. It's been almost 30 years. God, that makes me feel old. It's been, hold on. My math
22, bro.
Yeah. Why? I don't know.
Hey, so I work in a lab, and people there pull out calculators all of the time for very, very simple things.
Yeah, I should have done it. It's like I've turned on my mind to go deep into a movie like this, and now I'm forgetting the simple things.
Yeah, well, we were just talking, you know, philosophy and stuff, and religion and things. Well, I guess we didn't even touch on like the religious aspect, but so I had heard Lily describing Morpheus's character as basically a religious zealot, and her saying, and I have this awesome quote pulled up here, that basically people who think they know the truth can be very dangerous, because they can act blindly. And, you know, that's basically Morpheus. Like if you think about his awesome speech in the gatekeeper scene, where Morpheus and Neo are walking through, the construct, and they first see the lady in red, and he has that fabulous speech where he says, the Matrix is a system. The system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, policemen, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still part of that system. And that makes them our enemy. You have to understand that most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. And so he believes this religiously. And, he's then Neo sees the woman in a red dress, and he's like staring at her, and Morpheus says, look again. Turns around that there's the agent with the gun to Neo's head. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what you need to remember is that until we have saved these people, every one of them is an agent, pretty much. So he's basically got that with us or against us, kind of mentality.
Well, not only that, but I mean, and I know, and I know eventually we are going to get back to favorite moments and things like that. But I like this conversation about philosophy and religion, and I hope listeners are enjoying it as well, because it really is what this movie is made up of. But talking about the religious undertones as well, even Morpheus's faith in Neo being the one, without knowing truly that he is the one.
Yeah, that's that blind acting.
It's the blind acting. I mean, it's the same thing that drives a lot of people in faith and religion, is believing in an entity or believing in a deity that even though you can't see it, you still have that faith that it exists. And that's exactly how Morpheus is when it comes to Neo. He has that blind faith, even though he hasn't seen it. So that in itself is kind of a religious undertone to the film.
Yeah. And, getting back to this simulacra and simulation deal, that's basically the way that it is with all media that you consume. And I mean all. So in the original red pill, blue pill scene, he says, the Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. When you look out your window, when you turn on your TV, you can feel it. You see it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. And he doesn't say the wool that's been pulled over our eyes. It's the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Neo says, what truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch, a prison for your mind. And with simulacra and simulation, it's basically you're living in a world of symbols. If you look around you, you're wearing a hat, there's a symbol on your hat, and that symbol is the symbol of a company. And with that comes certain ideas about what kind of people wear this hat. Mm-hmm. Okay. What do those people do for a living? What do they think about religion, about politics? What kind of homes do they live in? What kind of cars do they drive? What kind of books, if any, do they read? What kind of TV programs do they watch? And all of that kind of stuff can be conveyed by the little symbol on the hat that you are currently wearing. I'm wearing a shirt as well. There's a logo of the college I went to, and based on what college that was, you can get a certain idea about who I am, what my experiences were when I get there, whether those are real or not, right? Again, talking about layers of abstraction, same thing with your hat, whether you are or not, somebody who really aligns with that, or you just pick that one out at random, right? And so that is with, he very poignantly points out, when you look out your window, when you look out your TV, and I feel like a lot of us think when we turn on our TV and we look at, and it doesn't matter what news source you're watching, whether you're watching, CNN or the 700 Club or MSNBC or OAN, right? A lot of people watch that, and if that's their preferred channel, they think what they're looking at is reality. They're looking not at a television screen, they're looking through a window. They're looking through a window at the real world. Like when actually what you're looking at is not a window. You're looking at a painting. You're looking at something that has been created by the mind of another individual. And that palette has been carefully selected. What colors, what shapes, what figures, what's the landscape, what's the background, what's in, what's out. All of that is a carefully constructed image. And we're surrounded by these carefully constructed images that abstract us from real reality. So when Morpheus says like the Matrix is all around you, right? In the literal sense, for them, like they're in a machine. They're literally surrounded by the Matrix, right? But you know, the Wachowskis influenced by this book. It's a very clever way to say that, hey, all around us, everything around us has been carefully crafted and curated. This prison of your mind, right there in the Matrix, they're literally in a prison of their minds, right? They're trapped in their bodies and they can't get out. But us, like, we're limited by our culture. We're limited by our language. The way that we think, the thoughts that we think, are influenced by the time that we're in, the people that we know, the experiences that we've had, the consequences that we faced from the actions of ourselves and others. And all of that is inescapable. We are inescapable products of our culture, of our time, of our languages, of our methods of thinking. And we cannot escape that either.
Mm-hmm. Man, you when you went deep, you went deep.
A little bit.
Yeah. I dig it though. I really do. Like, and like I said, I hope people listen and dig it too, because I'm so intrigued, because I didn't go that deep and I'm glad somebody did.
But like that kind of stuff is mostly missing though from the second and third. Like there's no kind of ponderances like that. Like there's no real grand speeches like the ones that Morpheus gives there that I just quoted.
Yeah,
so I think that's kind of why they tend, for most viewers, and they did for me through these rewatches, ring a more hollow, more like eye candy, even though the eye candy is some of the best eye candy I've ever seen.
I mean, and that's just it too. You know, like a lot of people feel that the second and third movies didn't live up to the first one, even though, like I said, I still think they did give us a lot, and I do appreciate what they gave us, but I do agree it didn't live up to the first one. And even though a lot of people may not realize exactly what was missing from the films in the sense of philosophical storytelling and religion, the way the first one portrayed it, a lot of people may not have seen that on the surface. That's what's missing, but they were still able to feel a sense that something was missing.
I deeply agree.
Yeah. So, with that being said, let's dive into some of our, I mean, unless you have any other philosophical or religion notes that you kind of want to bring up before we move on to like scenes and characters and things like that.
I think that's mostly it, but you know, that's all that stuff is what jumped out at me the most when I was going through these rewatches. Was like, wow, the original Matrix is not only did it hold up on all those other levels that we were talking about, but it's still so completely applicable. Simulacra and Simulation, written back in the 80s, and that guy was already saying that we're living in, like that whole world that I just described, and it was still super apt in 1999. We in for a storm right after 99, and and we're still in that storm now, yeah. and I don't see it ending, like maybe ever.
And the movie, I mean, not just from a special effects perspective, but just from a storytelling perspective, the movie still holds up. Like it's been like 22 years, as you mentioned, and I so largely failed at figuring out how long ago the movie came out. 22 years, the movie still holds up, and it's in almost every degree. The movie still holds up to me.
Yep.
I don't know if you feel the same way.
Absolutely. It does. I mean, I only did these rewatches in the 4K. I didn't watch them in anything else. So with those transfers visually, it's amazing. Yeah. If you're a fan, you should definitely check them out in the 4K. And as far as, all that other stuff goes on, like, just talking about layers of power and control, like layers of power and control go back to the beginning of human history, and I don't think that they'll ever go away as long as there are humans. So stories about power and control and self-determination, like identity, self-expression, all of those, especially, being very personal for like the Wachowskis who, are now Lana and Lily. You can go back and watch, like those films with the eye of transness, and that's just another added layer that I didn't even go into that is totally there if you're looking for it now.
Oh, well, even there's one character in particular that highlights that completely, even though unfortunately it didn't happen the way they wanted it to. But the character of Switch was literally supposed to be that kind of trans character, in that it's supposed to be a male character within the Matrix, but a female character in the real world. That was the point of the name. Whoa. Switch.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I might have that the other way around. Maybe it's a male in the real world and a female inside the Matrix. I can't remember, but that was the point. That was the reason why that character was created and named Switch, was because the character was going to switch sexes both in and out of the Matrix.
Wow.
So,
and with that, like the Agent Smith is constantly calling Neo, Mr. Anderson, and you get in the very excellent subway fight scene in the very first Matrix, right before the train's about to plow into both of them, and then Neo says, like Agent Smith's got Neo around the neck, and he's like, "You see, Mr. Anderson, this is inevitable." Again, that determinism, organically creeping in there, and Neo saying like, "My name is Neo," before smashes him into the roof and dodges out of the way of the train. And like, there's a huge power in being like, "No, I'm not what you say I am. I am what I claim to be." And I think that is extremely powerful,
incredibly powerful. Yeah. That said, with you mentioned the subway scene, we kind of mentioned Burly Brawl already, and we mentioned the freeway chase as well. Let's throw a highlight on some of our favorite eye candy and eye catching moments from the movie. Let's talk about let's talk about some of our favorite scenes. Some of the ones that we've mentioned already. We mentioned the opening of the movie, the freeway chase, Burly Brawl, bullet time. And I think for the most part, those are the ones that we've named so far. What are some other ones that kind of stick out to you?
The freaking lobby scene.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. It's such a incredibly well done scene. It is a 3-minute scene, maybe a little longer, that took them 10 days to film. And with the exception of removing the cables, removing the wires that were attached to them, there is no CG in that scene. Everything is practical effects.
Yeah. So I was watching that most recently. What jumped out to me the most this time was like they have the bomb in the elevator, and then they escape the elevator, shoot the wire, they go zooming up, elevator with the bomb goes down, blows out in the lobby. And I always heard it say, it's incredibly hard to do fire in CG, right? And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, okay, I'm watching this in 4K, and this fire looks fucking incredible. It's because it's real freaking fire. It's
real fire, exactly.
Freaking real fire. They blew it up, man.
Yeah, I mean, the gunfight, the running along the walls, like everything from, punching the walls and the concrete exploding, like everything was done practical effect, which just made that scene even better. And then why it'll hold up forever too. Oh, absolutely, because the CG will never get old because there's no CG in the scene.
Yeah.
And one of my other absolute favorite parts of that scene is that at the end, when it's the wide shot of the lobby, the aftermath of it, and the elevator door closes, and it just sits there for a second, and then you just see that last piece of concrete fall.
Yeah,
that wasn't timed. It actually happened, and it was so coincidental that they were like, "Yeah, we're leaving that in."
Whoa, I did not know that. That's amazing.
So it was such a well-timed coincidence that they were like, "Yep, that's staying in the movie."
which is super cool because if you dig into the special features for listeners out there, like they really were super meticulous about absolutely everything and like planned everything and like knew exactly what they wanted with like every freaking shot. You know, like we were mentioning earlier with with the previs and stuff. So that's super cool. I did not know that about that concrete.
And and I love that scene again too, because I mean, it is, I mean, if I had to pick a top 3 favorite scenes of the entire trilogy, that would be in my top 3, because it's
100%.
It's such a phenomenal scene. And it kicks off like when they walk through the lobby and they set off the security sensor and he opens his jacket and that security guard just, holy shit. And then boom, like it goes into it. And it's like, it's so phenomenal. It's such a great scene.
It really is.
One of my favorites is one that kind of grew on me at first. I didn't know how I felt about it at first. I felt it was very overly CG, which is the total opposite of the lobby scene. But the more and more I watched it, the more I grew to appreciate it. And that's the final battle between Neo and Agent Smith. You know, inside the Matrix, it's nothing. Agent Smith has pretty much taken over everybody, and it's them one-on-one. And it's a great fight scene that's mixed with some amazing martial arts choreography, super heroic flying, like epic destruction in that final fall to the ground in what I believe is supposed to be the Flatiron Building in New York City that explodes in the background.
Oh, interesting.
But which I don't know if that has any merit or meaning. I think maybe just aesthetically it was a building that fit into the background. But yeah, that's just one of those scenes that, like I said, the more I watched it, the more I grew to appreciate it. So,
yeah, I was lucky enough that, going into these rewatches, I basically just remembered those for like the excellent action scenes. And, so for me, yeah, that scene is just absolutely amazing. Like all the rain, all the effects around that, like them like coming together and doing like explosions, like the raindrops, like coming out, watching the special features, seeing how they did all that. It's again, just another huge technical masterpiece. Before they did those air fight scenes, like they rented one of those, jets that flies up and then does like the free fall. So they had, and I can't believe we haven't mentioned it up until this point, but Wo Ping, like the big stunt guy that they went and got, like their Hong Kong kung fu guy.
Oh yeah,
who did Fists of Fury that they wanted specifically for the Matrix and had to go after repeatedly to get him to come on to do the Matrix. And then he came back to do the second and third one. He had his team. They put his team up in one of those jets that does the free falls. So
the Vomit Comet?
The Vomit Comet. Yeah, they had them do the Vomit Comet beforehand, so they would have an idea what a fight would look like in free fall, like you were mentioning, like that awesome Neo falling, right? What would a fight look like in the air in free falling? And so they went and did it. They freaking did it. They did a fight in free fall to see how it would actually look.
That's amazing.
Which is just so cool.
The amount of research and time and effort that they put into every background element of these movies, even the second and third ones, is just, it's phenomenal. It's outstanding. What's another scene that you think kind of stands out a little bit?
I think for me that the only one that really stands out that we haven't talked about is the amazing like Zion dock scene, which is many scenes, like because they cut to and back from, but combined those amazing sequences, the fights between the APUs and the Squiddies in Zion is just freaking amazing. How awesome those looked at the time. I just couldn't believe it, and still looks really good. At least it did to me in my most recent rewatch. is extremely impressive.
No,
I think the amount of money they put into that, they were saying like we put more money into the CG for this Zion battle than like most movies have for their entire budget.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That scene is also on my list. That battle for Zion. Those scenes are just absolutely incredible. And one of the things that we mentioned at the top of the podcast is that there's a very important character in those scenes that a lot of people may not realize because they may not have seen it. But the character of Kid actually comes from the Animatrix. There is a particular segment of the Animatrix where it's a story about a kid living called the kid, yeah, who is living in the Matrix, and he is eventually freed. And I thought it was so great because I do remember Animatrix came out shortly before Reloaded and Revolutions, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I know it came out real close. I've heard it described as the Matrix 1.5, but
yeah,
I don't remember. I know that I rented it before I saw Revolutions, but I'm not sure when it came out.
Yeah, I remember owning it. Video 2000, it was released 2003.
Straight to DVD.
Straight to DVD.
Blockbuster.
Yep. I worked at Blockbuster, I think at the time.
Oh, awesome.
When it came out. It says June of 2003. So that actually was shortly after Reloaded.
Oh, yeah. Must have
been. Which is interesting because I thought I remembered Kid being introduced first in Animatrix.
Yeah, he is. So, I mean, timeline wise, yeah, what Historian Animatrix happens before Reloaded.
Yes.
So it's very interesting because there's also the flight of the Osiris, as we were hinting at earlier, which basically happens before Reloaded as well. With like, that's where the message comes from, that the machines are trying to invade Zion and knock it out. There's this one lone hovercraft who happens to encounter all these squiddies and this drill machine, and they're like, do you know where we are right now? Oh shit, we're like directly above Zion. Like, these guys are coming. We gotta get this message out. And so that's like the message that the couriers are carrying in the beginning of Reloaded.
Yeah, it's an interesting watch. That if anybody is a fan of these movies and they haven't seen the Animatrix, I highly recommend, which I know you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But getting back to the story of Kid, he is in this animated section of the Animatrix. The Animatrix is completely animated, hence the Annie in the beginning, and there's a story. There is a segment in there called Kid's Story, and it is all about this character Kid, who is eventually awakened from the Matrix, and he is brought into the films in Reloaded and Revolutions. He is the kid that is called Kid, and if you don't remember him by name, he is the one who is running the ammunitions out to these units, and eventually ends up taking over one of the units to shoot the chain to open the door so that oh God, I can't remember her name.
Niobe,
yes. So that Naomi and her ship can return to set off the EVP or EMP.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to remember the name of the ship, and I was like, I can't remember which one it is either.
I can't remember the name of the ship either.
Not a true Matrix nerd. I apologize.
I'm right there with you. I don't remember, and I just watched them the other day.
Me too.
I still don't remember the name of the ship. That's all right.
And I was watching all the special features and stuff earlier today. But yep. So there's that. Did you have any other favorite scenes? Because that's all mine.
The only other one I have is the scene that I call I Know Kung Fu. And it is the training sequence between Morpheus and Neo. It's just such an incredible fight scene, and it gets highlighted even more when you realize, which I don't think many people knew at the time, that those martial arts moves are not faked, at least not by Keanu. Keanu is in real life a certified badass. I don't know if anybody.
He's very impressive IRL.
I don't know if anybody has seen. There is a video floating around. There's like a YouTube video of him floating around doing gun training.
Oh yeah, he does a 3-gun.
Yeah, it'll blow your mind. It seriously will blow your mind. He is, like as you said, a badass IRL. There's like no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, it's so freaking impressive. I go to the range sometimes and just like, I'm obviously a total amateur, but if you handled firearms and see your level of competency at the range, and then watch one of these people and it's like Keanu Reeves do this stuff, and you're just like, holy F, this guy's freaking amazing.
Yeah, he's insane. And it's no wonder that he's still doing movies like John Wick and such. Niobe's ship, by the way, is the Logos.
Ah, yeah, the Logos.
I mean, because it's hard to forget the Nebuchadnezzar. Because because
there's that awesome shot of the nameplate at the very least in the first one.
And yeah, because it's really not mentioned a lot of times, but it's just such a memorable name for some reason that you just don't forget the Nebuchadnezzar.
I think maybe people with a Judeo-Christian background, like that name's kind of already there.
That's true
for the most part.
Yeah, that's true. Scenes we've pretty much covered. For the most part, some of our favorites. Where do you stand with characters? I mean, with the exception of Neo, who would you say is probably one or two of your other favorite characters from the franchise? And it doesn't have to be Morpheus or Trinity. Because I know personally, I was a big fan of Niobe.
It's definitely Morpheus and Trinity for me.
Morpheus and Trinity and Neo are absolutely like, how can you go wrong with any of the three of them?
Yeah, it's basically a 4-star lead of Hugo Weaving, Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Lawrence Fishburne, pretty much across the 3 movies. It's mostly them.
Hugo Weaving is just, he's so amazing in these movies. And what's cool about it too is the fact that he didn't have to go far for his for inspiration for his character, because the way he spoke as Agent Smith was similar to how the Wachowskis spoke on set. So he basically just modeled his performance off the Wachowskis. Wow. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's fun little trivia. Like I said, Morpheus, Trinity, you can't go wrong with any of them, Agent Smith. But I mean, in addition to those, Niobe was a favorite of mine. And Seraph, I thought was an awesome character as well. So. Oh yeah.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned Nicolas Cage at the top. There were 3 other people. I'll get into some production notes unless you have any other notes on characters and scenes.
I don't think so, other than to mention that the original actress who played Oracle in the first 2 movies sadly passed, between Reloaded and Revolutions.
Yeah.
I'm sadly blanking on what her name was.
Did she do the first 2, or did she do 1 and then the second actress came in for 2 and 3?
The second actress came in for 3.
For 3, okay. Okay, so they must have been filming them back to back, and then they Gloria Foster was the first Oracle.
Yeah. I don't know what how she passed, but she was just so freaking amazing as the Oracle in the first one. Just so like charming isn't quite the word, but like it was written just for her. I don't know if they had her in mind, but for a scene. She's only in the movie for like a couple minutes, but she does so much to make that first movie, because a lot rides on the Oracle throughout this trilogy, and she only has 2 scenes basically. She has that scene in the original Matrix, and then that
and then
scene
on the park bench right before Burly Brawl.
Yeah, and the second one. But I don't know. She just embodies that character so well.
Yeah, she died unfortunately at the age of 67 from complications of diabetes. So, man, 67 is still relatively young. I mean, that was sad. But I do remember her passing away and then having to recast the role for the third film. So, some production notes that I have here. I mentioned Nicolas Cage at the top, possibly being up for the role of Neo. There were 2 other people that were up for the role as well before Keanu Reeves took it. Both Will Smith and Johnny Depp were also up for that role.
Whoa.
Which I don't know if any of the 3 of them, if it would have worked out any other way. I know I'm trying to find the other note. There were also,
I could see it because,
I could see Will Smith.
Well, all of them, like they have like quite the comedic side, but then they can also do like serious, I think, extremely well. And, obviously Keanu with like Bill and Ted and stuff. And then I don't know. I think Keanu just has a really amazing range, and yeah, I'm just really, really in awe of that guy in lots of ways.
Yeah. In real life too. I mean, he's an amazing person in real life as well. As for the role of Morpheus, Russell Crowe, Sean Connery, and Samuel Jackson all could have been Morpheus at one time before Lawrence Fishburne.
Holy Jesus.
For Sean Connery, it was apparently a matter of just not understanding the script, which is also the reason why he turned down Lord of the Rings.
What?
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Sean Connery was originally up for Gandalf.
Holy shit.
And he turned it down because he didn't understand the story. And he has said before he passed, that was one of his biggest regrets, was turning down Lord of the Rings, because it turned out to be epic.
Wow.
So I would have just asked somebody like, hey, can you help me understand this a little bit more? So, you mentioned that the book of philosophy, the
Simulacra and Simulation.
Simulacra and Simulation. The Wachowskis actually had all of the cast members read that book before production.
Awesome.
So they all brushed up on their knowledge of philosophy by reading that book before they started.
I feel slightly more justified about my rant now.
There you go. This is a really cool one that I like too. The whole movie is color coded. The only time the color green appears in the real world is when the Matrix code is being shown on screen.
What?
You never see the color green in the real world. It is reserved purely for the world of the Matrix.
Wow. Interesting.
All the scenes that take place in the Matrix have a green tint, while all the scenes that take place in the real world have a blue tint.
Yeah, I did notice that the real world is very blue.
Yeah.
In like warmth terms, not like emotionally, but yeah, very, very blue in palette terms.
The lead actors trained every day for 4 months in order to pull off their fight scenes, which is incredible.
Yeah, I in the special feature saw that they trained for 7 months for the second, third one.
The second or third one, yeah, makes sense. Keanu had cervical spine surgery prior to the training period, that he had to wear a neck brace throughout the training, which makes him even more of a badass.
Yeah. The
fact that he got trained that bad or that good while he was wearing a neck brace during all of it.
Do you have any other injury tidbits in here?
Yeah, there's apparently Hugo Weaving had to undergo hip surgery after being injured during the fight training.
So he got injured he felt something in his leg on day 2, went in to go see actually Keanu's doctor. Keanu's doctor told him that he had a bone marrow edema, for which he had to undergo surgery. They gave him a spinal block, so he was awake during it and watched the surgery.
What?
Himself. He watched them operate on his. So he watched them go into his freaking bone marrow.
Oh,
that's
God.
intense.
That's really intense.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually in the special features, you can see this. It's filmed when Hugo tells this to his castmates, and Lawrence Fishburne was like, "You're crazy, dude."
More power to him, man. Knock me out. I don't want to see that.
So they weren't sure if Hugo was going to be able to actually do the filming for it, because as they were saying, that was day 2 of the martial arts training. And so what they ended up doing was actually pushing all of the fight scenes, filming all the fight scenes until the end of shooting of principal production or principal photography.
Yeah, and it's also one of the reasons, going back to Keanu's spinal surgery too, it's one of the reasons why in the first movie and a lot of the fight scenes, he does very little kicking, because his spine was still adjusting to the surgery that he had prior to the training.
I did not know that.
He doesn't start kicking. Kicks do not become part of his fight training or his fight sequences until the second and third movie.
Interesting.
So, and there actually is one other injury story I see in production notes too, is that Carrie-Anne Moss actually twisted her ankle pretty badly while shooting one of her scenes, but she did not tell anybody until filming for the movie was completely over, because they did not want her to they did not want the studio to recast her.
Wow.
She was so committed to the role that she didn't tell anybody because she didn't want to be recast.
In the bathroom scene, fight scene in the first one, like when they're sliding down the wall and stuff, and Morpheus jumps out of the wall to battle Agent Smith. In that fight choreography, there is a point where Morpheus goes to punch Agent Smith, and Smith blocks Morpheus's punch with a punch, so he punches Morpheus's punch. Mm-hmm. And in the choreography, like, they're obviously not supposed to make contact, but in the filming thereof, they accidentally did punch each other's fists.
Oh, jeez.
And they were saying they heard an audible crack on sound, and Hugo Weaving's wrist blew up like the next day, and he thought that maybe he broke his wrist. Ended up being fine, but something that did actually happen, he sustained a kick from Lawrence in the rib cage, and he ended up getting 2 cracked ribs from that, which he didn't find out until sometime later.
That's
crazy. Still continued filming like the rest of the movie. The amount of
stuff that they put themselves through just to make these movies is it's unbelievable.
Carrie-Anne Moss broke her leg in the second week of training for Matrix Reloaded and Revisited in the second week of their 7-month martial arts training. 7 months, people. That's insane.
It's crazy. Trying to see if I have any other ones that are that are just really notable. I think that's pretty much it on my end. Let me see. Hold on. I'm sorry. So the Matrix, they quoted a budget of more than $80 million to Warner Brothers, not 30. Warner Brothers refused, and it said offered them 10 million. So I was right about that part. I was wrong about the 30.
What a counter offer.
Later, when they created the opening scene and showed it to the executives, they were given the green signal and the entire original budget.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, let's see. According to Greek mythology, Morpheus is the god of dreams, and in the movie, the job of Morpheus is to awaken the humans from their virtual world to reality. So that's one of the reasons for the naming of the character. And then the only other one, there's 2 other ones I see. All the characters in the movie wear sunglasses, which were all custom designed for each of them. The shape of the lens is different for the agents and the renegade group. Every bad guy wears rectangular lenses, while the rounded lenses are sported only by the good guys.
I did not catch that.
Never caught that either. Yep. And then the last one I have is when Neo wakes up in the pod and he has that emaciated look. Keanu achieved that by losing 15 pounds and shaving his entire body.
Dang. Commitment,
man. That guy's committed, which is why I'm excited for this 4th one. But before we get into predictions for the fourth one. Any final notes on anything from this original trilogy franchise? Anything you want to bring up? Anything we might have forgotten?
Just production wise, just a random thing that came to mind while you're mentioning that scene where he awakens in the pod, when those little bits, like hit the little connection things, blow off his like arms and like spine and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when they pulled the thing, connection cord out of the back of his head, that's a dummy. But when he actually does break out of that freaking pod, I don't know what they use for that, but that's amazing. That looks like it would have been really freaking cold. And when the little connection things like blow off of his arms and stuff, that was real. They really did have that stuff like blowing off of his arms, which is why it looks so awesome. And
yeah, probably had to be like some like CO2 system or something that popped them. And
yeah,
but even still, like that's really cool. And
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I don't know what they would have used. I would have to imagine it's some kind of gelatin based liquid that he was sitting in. I don't know.
Yeah, I fast forwarded through that one special feature, but it's in there if people are interested.
Okay.
The other one is for Matrix Reloaded and Revisited. As we were saying, they shot both of these together. They did basically pre-production for a year, which is like all that awesome previous stuff we were talking about: planning, blocking, fight coordinating, set building, all that stuff, which is all super amazing. Like you're saying, they built a freaking however many mile stretch of
mile and a half stretch, highway.
They did pre-production for a year, then they shot for a year. Like if you're watching the special features, you can see like shoot day number 57, 183, like 289, 59 or whatever. Like they filmed for like a freaking year, and then they did post-production for a year. So a year of pre-production, a year of production, and a year of post-production. So they were doing that thing for like 3 freaking years. They were dedicated.
And they must have,
wow.
They had to have started that then right after the first Matrix. Because if it took them 3 years between pre-shooting and post, and the Matrix came out in 99 and Reloaded came out in 2003, they had to have started right after the first one.
Yeah.
It had to have been a pretty quick turnaround to get started on the second and third movies.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, their martial arts training for the cast started like November 2000. So like a year after it released in theaters, more or less.
Yeah. Cool. Let's spend a couple minutes on Resurrections. And where do you think the story is going? Like, because by the end of Revolutions, we assume that Neo is dead. Trinity is definitely dead. At least that's what we're led to assume. How do you think this is going to shape up? What kind of predictions do you have for the movie?
So I don't have any predictions. I didn't watch the trailer, but I did listen to an interview with Lana and 3 of the other writers. Also, David or James McTeague was there, but David Lloyd was there, and 2 of the other script writers. What's his name? Hyman and Alexander Hyman and forgive me, I can't remember the other guy's name.
David
so
Mitchell?
So I haven't, them talking about what it's going to be a little bit, but I don't have any prognostications. Can I turn this question around? Do you have prognostications? Then I'll go into what I heard.
I really don't. I did watch the trailer, and the trailer had definitely piqued my interest. I did have an initial theory that maybe the Neo that we're seeing is basically just a consciousness existing within the Matrix, and he has no physical body. Because what we see of his body at the end of, Revolutions is that it's it's wasted. He's no longer there. But maybe there are remnants of his consciousness that remained inside the Matrix, since that was where he was when he died. Since he died within the Matrix, his consciousness could be revived. But then I thought, and maybe it's the same thing with Trinity, but how would Trinity's consciousness get into the Matrix if she died before she was jacked in? So I don't know. I really don't know what to predict from this. So I basically stopped trying, and I'm just going to watch it.
Yeah. So most of the time when I watch a movie, it's either because I'm either somewhat aware of the property, or I'm aware of writers or directors, or there's like a lead that I'm interested in watching. and so this one basically checks all of those boxes. The writers, directors, and leads are all the same from the other movies, except Lily is absent from this one.
Yeah, it's just Lana.
But so I heard an interview with as I was mentioning, with the writers and Lana, who's a writer and director. So I'm actually not going to talk about that. So if you're interested, if listeners are interested, you can go find that again. So that was Lana Wachowski, David Mitchell, Alexander Hammond, and there's one more, but I'm sure if you search that, you can find it. It was actually at a German film festival a couple months back. But they kind of go into a lot of the inspirations for that, and why it is that Lana decided to, no pun intended, revisit this intellectual space. But to prognosticate, as I said that I would not just a few minutes ago, our Neo from the original Matrix trilogy is the sixth one, and also to bring it back to the Matrix Online, we were saying happens in the aftermath of Matrix Revolutions. So at the very end, there's that scene with the Oracle and the Architect, and they've brokered this peace with Zion, and the Oracle basically presses the Architect and saying, like, what are you going to do with the people that are still plugged in? And the Architect says that he's going to free those who are still plugged in. And Oracle's like, are you really going to do that? And the Architect's like, what am I, a human? I'm going to go back on my word or something. And maybe he does. Like, when talking about functions, like he has that big speech with Neo that I was talking about in Reloaded, where he's talking about what is the function of the one, what is the purpose, the duty of the one. So what is the purpose and the duty of the Architect? The purpose of the and duty of the Architect is to create a simulation which keeps humans, like, not necessarily happily plugged in, but like, as he would say, like, willingly plugged in. Like, you have to give them some kind of choice, no matter how small, no matter how, like, on a barely conscious level, but they have to kind of choose to stay.
Well, I think,
like, as Morpheus is saying, like,
I think even
the people will fight to protect the system.
Yeah, and I think even the Architect says that at the end of Revolutions, when him and the Oracle are sitting on that bench speaking. I think the Architect even says those who want to be freed can be freed.
Oh, is that what he says?
Yeah.
Maybe I have that totally wrong.
So I mean, people will have a choice from that point going forward.
Interesting. So maybe, some amount of people decide to remain behind, because, I mean, the Matrix Online, so far as I know, is canon. So okay. I don't think that they're going to pull a Disney and have, like, Matrix Legends. That would be total BS.
Yeah.
I'd still begrudge Disney for that. But so in that case, like, people still are plugged in. Otherwise, there would be no Matrix Online for characters to run around and explore.
Yeah.
But basically, your character in that game, like the rest of the heroes in the Matrix movies, are born into the Matrix and then, substantiate and come out and, join a hovership crew and, jack in and try and free more minds. And so you in that game decide, what faction you're going to support, whether, like Merovingian and like the Exiles. That's the name of those programs that don't return to the source, like the twins and stuff. They're called Exiles. I can't believe we didn't bring up the train scene, that stuff either. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you bring that up too, because one of those characters is returning for the new movie, and that's
interesting.
Sati, the little girl.
Oh, no way.
She is coming back for this movie. It's a different actress, and the character is older.
Mm-hmm.
But that character is returning for Resurrections. As is, I think, Niobe is returning as well.
Cool.
So
all for it.
She's listed in the credits at least, so we'll see.
Is it going to be a young Niobe, or like,
well, that's
they recast Morpheus, or is it going to be Jada?
It's Jada. Jada's listed in the credits as returning.
Sweet.
As Niobe. But see, that's what confuses me though, because Sati is in there and she's older, but Morpheus is in there and he's younger.
I don't know, man.
So I don't know, but I'm intrigued and I'm excited. December 22nd is when that movie releases, and I don't know, maybe we'll do an episode shortly afterwards, and like I'll invite you back on and we'll do like a review.
I'm so game
of Resurrections. We'll do that. We did it for we did a review of Last Night in Soho, and then I just did Ghostbusters Afterlife with Damien on his podcast. So yeah, after that comes out, we'll do like a one-off episode, and I'll bring you back on and we'll do a review of Resurrections.
Heck yeah, I'd be honored. That'd be awesome.
Cool. Any final notes on anything Matrix related before we start to wrap things up?
No, I think I pretty much hit everything I had to say.
Cool. I know you don't have any podcasts of your own. Maybe that'll change one day. But as far as like recommendations, any podcasts that you listen to that you want to recommend to people, any books that you've read lately, anything you want to recommend to any of the listeners right now?
Yes.
You're just a fan of.
Absolutely. One, you can totally yell at me on Twitter. You can find me at Eric Stipes, EricStipes, and tell me if I'm full of it or you totally agree or anything. After this, I'm very down to talk the Matrix for the next couple weeks. But podcast called Philosophize This, or I think that's the name of it. Let me check real quick.
Yeah, sometimes we get so caught up in the podcast that we listen to that we don't remember.
Yeah, it's called. It's amazing because I've actually listened to this podcast for years, and I'm a Patreon, or a patron thereof. But yeah, Philosophize This with Stephen West. He even does a podcast, which I should have gone back and really dug into on simulacra and simulation. And there's a lot of other stuff that I didn't get into in the Matrix about like postmodernism and stuff. Like there's also like Cornel West is in this flick. He's one of the council members, Councilman West. So there's other. If you dig some of that philosophy stuff that I was talking about, there's Philosophize This does a podcast on simulacra and simulation and a bunch of other postmodern philosophers. So if you like deconstruction and destroying grand narratives, I would recommend not only checking out those episodes, but the entire podcast in general is fantastic. And I'm sure there's would love to plug obviously Podcastica, which is where I know you from. I'm sure everybody who listens to this podcast has already heard lots of shout outs for Podcastica, but it really is great. And without that, I would have never encountered you, fine sir Ben, for which I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah, I'm super happy that I finally had you on. Just a quick side note, I had the IMDb page up for the Matrix Resurrections as we were talking, and I happened to notice in the photos a picture that kind of drew me to it. And I just clicked on it to make it larger, and it's a picture of Neo walking away from the camera with a coffee shop in the background. And the name of the coffee shop is Simulate.
What? Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, the name of the coffee shop is Simulate. So I like that nice little Easter egg, which I would have never even picked up on had we not had that conversation about the book. I would have never even realized that's what that was. So some good came out of that conversation. I love it.
I never noticed the title of that book until I was rewatching it for the show. So super grateful. I would have never fallen down that rabbit hole without you having me on.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the stuff you find out when you start doing research into something, like when you actually start putting a little bit of effort into what you're watching rather than just watching it as a viewer, but start analyzing something. We mentioned, I was just on watching in the 80s talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife, which we thought was just going to be a quick review of that podcast. Forewarned, it's almost a 2-hour long podcast because we go deep into like character development and everything. And it's like, it's deep analysis of these characters that I didn't expect to go into, but we just kind of fell into it, and, ties to the original story that these casts had. It was great. It was a great conversation, and 2 hours flew, man. It was great. So there's that podcast. And then and Podcastica as well, as you mentioned, I'm currently co-hosting House Podcastica right now for Amazon's The Wheel of Time, which has been with Greg and Wendy, which has been a ton of fun. But I know Strange Indeed is covering Dexter and Great British Bake Off, and they just wrapped up their coverage on Lock and Key. House Podcasting, as I mentioned, Wheel of Time, and then towards the end of this month, they're going to be covering Cobra Kai returning for season 4, which I can't wait, and Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus, which is going to be incredible.
There's so much going on Podcastica right now. I don't know how all of the amazing people are keeping up. On the production side, Jason
even asked me. He's like, "I heard you want to do Wheel of Time." He's like, "Do you have time to do Wheel of Time?" He's like, "I will make time."
I was just about to dig into that when I volunteered to do this, and after this, I'm going to be digging into Wheel of Time.
Into the books or into the series?
The show.
Okay, the show is really good. The show is really well done.
Awesome.
As for this podcast, as for Wilhelm, if you like what you hear, be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcasting platform you listen on. The more reviews I receive, the more people I can reach. So those positive reviews definitely help. Also, be sure to follow Wilhelm on social media, such as at Facebook at facebook.com/The Wilhelm Podcast. And you can follow me on Instagram as well at The Wilhelm Pod. Lastly, if you want to reach out to me directly for any reason, whether it be to provide some kind of feedback or recommendations for anything you want to hear me cover on the podcast, you can reach out directly at the Wilhelm Podcast at gmail.com. Next couple episodes are holiday episodes. We've got, in no particular order, we're going to talk about our favorite movie, Santas. One episode, we're going to talk about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie, which is always a yearly debate. And of course, we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite holiday films, which that episode will release on Christmas Eve. Eric, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I'm so glad to finally get the podcast with you.
Thank you, sir.
And it will not be the last time.
I will be more than happy to return.
Well,
excellent, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll have you. I'll get you. We'll come back on. We'll do a Resurrections review.
Sweet. Let's do it.
We'll do that in a couple weeks. As for myself, thank you so much for the positive feedback that everybody is always receiving. Just leave those reviews. They really help. Even if it's just a 5-star, you don't have to write anything. That's fine. But until next time, we will see you on another episode of Wilhelm. Take care.